Hey everybody, this is Jack from Dicey Decisions, and we're here today with another author for our upcoming D&D campaign, Author Adventures, where we'll bring 5 fantasy author writers into one D&D game and see what happens. So we're here today with H. James Lopez. How you doing, James?
I'm doing great, Jack. How are you doing?
Great to meet you. I'm fine. James, let's start off. Why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Um, hey, James Lopez. I live in Texas. More than anything, I write in the sci-fi, action, and adventure genre. There's a little bit of fantasy in there as well, and like long walks on the beach, and I enjoy, spending time with good people.
Sounds great. So, can you tell us a little background on how you were presented with this idea of turning your character into a playable thing?
I was in a critique with one of your other authors. Worked with her for many many years, and she was talking about the idea of using D&D as a playable character so that people can see how both the author thinks and how the character would function in different scenarios. And I thought to myself, it's really a great idea. Now, I'm not a big D&D guy. Don't get me wrong. I was doing D&D when I was a young man, a long, long time ago. But it's come around, and a lot more people are loving it. I have 2 kids who play, and so I'm just kind of like, maybe it's time to dust off the old books and see what happens.
Well, I will tell you that it's not the same game it used to be. It's a lot more forgiving and adaptable and tweakable into whatever you are interested in, kind of. It's still very much a wide open game where you can try to do anything you come up with. So it should be somewhat fitting for the character you're bringing.
No, I hope it is.
Yeah, we'll probably figure out how to make your character come to life. So why don't you tell us, first of all, is your writing generally books or short stories, or what's your format?
Oh, you get me with the hard questions up front. All right. My writing is generally published is a lot of short stories. If you go to my Amazon page, easy plug right there. Um, if you go to my Amazon page, you'll see a lot of other people's books that I'm included in, and they're going to be great authors. They're guys out of Texas, guys from around the world, and women, not guys in the general term. Very Moana of me. But it's somewhere between, let's say, 10 and 30,000 words is usually what I submit for a short story. Very well thought out, at least in my opinion, as the author. They are good tales that run different gambits. But every so often, I come back to writing long form novels, of which I have written maybe 3 or 4 in the 70 to 100,000 thousand word range, and they're just it's more of a it's a journey for me, for the catharsis of writing and enjoying it. So I'm never pushing myself to publish, but I do enjoy getting the short stories out there because people seem to like them.
Interesting. Okay. This is a question I've asked everyone so far. Why do you write sci-fi and fantasy?
Ooh. Well, okay, so those are 2 different things completely.
Okay.
science
Feel free to
science fiction.
extrapolate.
I've got 30 minutes to kill, apparently. Science fiction, I've always found to be kind of a mirror to the world that we have. Science fiction is where people come up with creative ideas, building on what they currently have, and they say to themselves, "Well, how do we make what's going to be different in 10, 15 years? What's going to be different in 100 years? How are the same problems that man is currently dealing with going to get solved by a future version of man or a better version of man. And in a lot of sci-fi that's currently out there, a worse version of man.
Right. Or
Fantasy,
the
however,
questions
gives you
won't be
the
answered.
exactly. Whereas fantasy gives you this ability to say, well, let's get you out of the world of man. Let's get you into a place where everything is completely different than what you know. You have no background, and now I'm going to introduce you to concepts that you may or may not even have an idea about. And what I love about fantasy is the element of difference. It's the ability that people can say, okay, now there are flying creatures. Now, who rides those creatures? How does this little village make its livelihood throughout the years? Because the reason I like writing in fantasy is that you get to come up with those little niche things that explain all of the life and what is this world. So when I write in fantasy, I'm writing to that point, to the point of I want to create worlds. When I write in sci-fi, I write to the point of I want to see if I can fix the problems of the current. I guess would be to answer your question. When I'm writing in science fiction, I'm not trying to teach a lesson. I by no means need to teach anybody any lessons, but I'm writing to try and get a point across so that people see different pictures of things. Fantasy to me becomes this place where I can make the world and it can be anything I want it to be, so it becomes a little bit more fun.
Do you have any examples from your writing that you'd like to share?
Examples. Oh, well,
Examples of world building and changing it up to make it more fun.
okay, so let's, if we're looking at, if we're looking from a fantasy perspective, I've written a long novel called Berserk. It has a litany of characters, and they're all doing their own little adventure things. And this is where Kaluro, who is the character that we're using in this particular D&D game, comes from. And he's a smith in this world. He's an orc of small stature, and he is a blacksmith by trade, so he doesn't have the bloodlust that everybody knows of the entire orc line and family and lineage and whatnot. But in that world building example, the reason he has gotten his own stories is entirely by accident. This is a man who wants quiet in the world and would like to find a nice little place to rest and relax that is thrown into adventure. So he's not seeking trouble; he just finds it. Now, in I can say one of the other. Let's go to one of the sci-fi that I've written, which was published in Boundary Shot Quarterly. There's a lot of science fiction where we're building off of worlds that are similar to ours. So I'm building an adventure style sci-fi or a military style sci-fi that deals with the current problems of how does AI slowly take over robotics? How do robots integrate into current society? And what do these integrations cause problems with? You know, where is the fault and what is man going to do that will cause these problems to be exacerbated? So in my science fiction, I have to build using the world we have so that I can honestly say, I can see men doing this to robots, which causes the robots to do this to man, and thus this is our problem. Whereas in fantasy books, I can say, I've created all the problems, and now I just need people to solve them.
Right. There's a big dragon eating everybody.
I have so many dragons. If we talk about dragons, we'll be here for hours.
You know, that's what I was thinking about the game that you guys will be playing. If there's not a dragon, I might be disappointed. There should be.
Well, I'll tell you, there should be. I'll tell you right now. In Kaluro is my character. I'll eventually get to that, and I know that. In his backstory, a dragon killed his orcish family. So he winds up being adopted by a human who teaches him the art of blacksmithery. And so, as a smith, he kind of avoids all the trouble he can because he doesn't want to deal with the problems of, hey, if I go after things that are bigger than me, there's a good chance I might not win that fight. So, having dragons in the background always as a lingering evil, it kind of drives a bunch of his decisions. But to that same vein, there was a short story that one of my oldest son asked me about. One of the short stories I wrote, which was about Kaluro taking on a dragon, and his entire horde is about cookery. He's a dragon that enjoys chefs. So he just likes the best recipes and the best food. So it was a dragon that completely threw off the dragon construct, and Kaluro now has had an interaction, the only interaction he's had with an actual dragon who was a decent guy, and he was like, "Well, I just like recipes, man. What's your beef against dragons?"
Yeah, I didn't kill your parents. Fuck off, mister.
Exactly.
So, yeah,
let's bad dragons.
yeah, we all have our own personalities, which brings up, all kinds of moral dilemma. So let's talk about your character. You say his name is Kaluro?
He is Kaluro Fens. That is his not orcish name. I never actually gave him an orcish name, which we can deal with that problem another time. Mostly because his whole family was killed in a raid on a dragon, on a horde. He was left, and he was picked up by the Fens family, who is Fens is both a smith and I guess a sword master and a blacksmith. It's similar to I think it's Sir Gawain in the Green Knight. It's you got to both be a blade worker and someone who can fix a blade when it's needed.
Sure, a little bit of everything.
You're not always going to have an armor.
Right.
Someone's got to do the job.
Hey, it's like our modern farmers. They have to do literally everything.
Exactly. Somebody's got to pick up that slack. So Kaluro winds up living with the Fenses. He's their kid, and through a couple of other issues, he winds up losing part of the Fens family, namely their father, who is Galadorn Fen. But he is still searching out that quiet life. He's a guild blacksmith. He's trying to find a way to just be a blacksmith and live in a quiet world. But he is also an orc who stands somewhere in the 5 to 6 foot, like 2 meter range. And is giantly muscular, and nobody wants to leave that alone. It's very Shrek styled. I don't want to have a fight, but why do you?
Right. There are a lot of protagonists that fit that kind of model. Some of them even in the comedy genre. So yeah, it's always fun. You're always the underdog who is really not an underdog. You push me too hard, I'm gonna push back. The boy named Sue type of thing.
I like that. That's very nice.
So, have you tried to build Kaluro yet for your D&D experience?
I'm not gonna lie. I tried. My son walked me through the big book of making characters, and he built a sheet with me. And so I think I emailed that sheet to some people, but I'm pretty sure that did not get used because it was all over the place.
Oh, I'm sure we can all sit down together and figure it out. What kind of... So he's a smith and I guess a fighter at the same time?
Okay, so this goes to the sheet. The sheet says I believe the sheet says he's a barbarian and he is leveled as a smith.
Okay.
So he is, because of size, my son was like, you want the size, and you want the roles to go with his size, to go with his physical demeanor, but then he is a smith based entirely on his skill sets.
Sure.
And then there was a bunch of other things got added.
Right. There's a whole bunch of little details that you can do. And a lot of it can be just description, and you can change anything up to make it, we call it flavor in the game. So like if your armor, let's say you wear a chainmail shirt, but you can say that chain is made of giant bird scales or, anything really that you want. So you can
I have heard
flavor
good
it.
things.
Yeah, you can flavor it however you want. You can describe them in any way. You can change the color of their skin or like give them extra big hands or really anything you come up with that sounds like it fits. But yeah, Barbarian is a fairly easy class to jump right into. So it shouldn't be an initiative. You just hit things.
Well, I had to. That was the when putting together the sheet. That was one of the things that we talked about was that he's a skilled smith and he avoids a lot of conflict. So we kind of leveled him with certain numbers to give him a lot more intelligence than you would. I was willing to give up strength for the sake of being able to say I want him to be competent at the job. Because that's what we want. We want true to the character. I don't need him to smash through a wall, but I do want him to be able to reforge a pan, kind of a
Right.
thing.
Yeah. I think that Smithery in the edition that we're playing, it's really, it doesn't require you changing up your abilities too much. It's basically, you can be as strong as you want and still be a smith. You can be probably also fairly dexterous, at least with your hands. Yeah, you don't have to sacrifice anything to build a blacksmith, I think is what I'm trying to say.
Sounds
Okay,
good.
yeah. So when you accepted this experience or opportunity, whatever you want to call it, what do you hope your audience is going to get out of this?
Honestly, more than anything, I want the audience to like the character. I mean, I want the audience to get a lot of fun out of it. I sidebar. Um, Kaluro to me is one of the more interesting characters because he's your generic straight man. The joke is always happening around him, and so when I write Kaluro in that same fashion, he is trying to just get the job done. He has trying to remember tiefling that's beside him most of the time. His name is Hells. He's in the book, but he's not in. I didn't put him in the character sheet because it's a whole other character, and I'm going to play two
Sure.
people. That would probably be difficult. But there are other characters that continue to get him in trouble, whereas he is the straight man looking to get out of trouble. And so I want people to enjoy that humor. Like you said, there's a lot of comedy in the strong man who the fight comes to him every single time, and it gives you a lot to play with.
Right. Yeah,
And I do hope that I do hope he has that transfers, that a lot of the other characters can play with that, and that the viewers are able to see that it doesn't always have to be about smash. It doesn't have to be about breaking down walls. Like there's more, that there's a nuance of humor to an adventure as well as just smash and ride horses.
I think that's going to be pretty clear. Most people who play
We
it
don't all have to
actually.
be Conan.
Right, exactly. Is Kaluro anything like you? How much of your personality is going to come through in him?
I don't know. Honestly, Kaluro is a little bit more reserved than I am. He's more of a thinker. I am not much of a thinker. He is more of a he is
That can't be true.
he's oh totally is. But he's the issue with Kaluro is he's seen so much loss that there's a hesitancy to a lot of his actions. He doesn't want the wildlife because he's seen that a lot of that can be taken away rather quickly. There's a sadness to the humor. Because he's lost so much, he doesn't want to risk as much, and therefore he plays everything very tight, very close, very let's make sure we've checked everything twice, double check that rope, don't just jump off the hill kind of a guy. He talks it more than he'll go for the blade. And to that same, to that point, I don't think that I am as hesitant at being in life as Kaluro. Hopefully, I'll be able to do justice and think things through more when we're playing the game. Then
Well,
immediately,
that
my first
was,
reaction will be like, you know,
yeah, that was my follow-up. Like, how in his head do you think you're going to be? Do you think you're going to be there enough to play him accurately?
oh, it's going to require note cards. Like I'm going to have paper here in front of me, and I'm doing a hand motion you can't see because of the camera. I'm going to have paper in front of me that is going to remind me of his actions and his reactions, so that I can always kind of reference and say, okay, I would say tie a rope to a tree and jump off the cliff. He would say, let's walk this through really quickly because I'm 300 pounds and I'm going to snap that tree in half.
Gotcha.
He is not the
Mhm.
Wile E. Coyote.
Right. Um, so how nervous or confident are you about the whole game experience coming up?
Butterflies all day, every day.
Really?
No, not at all.
Oh, good.
To
You're
be
just ready to
honest,
roll right now.
the well, no, I mean it's been a long time, and now don't get me wrong. Playing a live version of D&D, then I can't like lie to you about what my dice rolls are. Whereas based entirely on this format, I'm going to roll a 17 every time. I'm just going to tell you right now, it's going to be amazing. I'm going to be doing things that are off the wall. So because we didn't go with a live format, because we're doing an online format, I made it takes a lot of the stress out of it. Because I'm in my mind, that was the worst thing. Was I've not played Dungeons and Dragons in years and years and years, and I remember in my youth, so many years ago, I played both Dungeons and Dragons and the Star Wars role playing game,
Hmm.
and I died so many times because I've made so many bad decisions. Like when somebody tells you what the math is on a thermal detonator, and you're like, let's do it anyway, then it's just not going to end well for you. So I am confident that this will help me out in that you can't see how bad I'm rolling.
Well, we can make it so that you can see exactly how bad you're rolling.
Let's
Uh,
not
yeah.
do that.
I think you're going to be playing. Well, I'm not sure. Out? No. Okay. So you are just going to be rolling your own dice, I guess, and
I mean,
trying to
if you
be
guys
honest
want, we can
about
get
it.
a dice cam. It'll be awesome.
We usually play on an online situation where you can see everybody's characters moving around and dice rolls and stuff, but we're not doing it in your case. That would take a lot more setup, and I guess we just want to go with it. But
Okay.
what if Kaluro dies in this adventure?
Well, I'm coming into it
Especially what
thinking
if he
like
dies because of something dumb you do? A quick decision
exactly.
made.
Let's see. Like I said, now I've written myself a back end. Don't get me wrong. Like I said earlier, Kaluro's best friend in one of the stories is a half demon named Hells. So we'll just have him brought back. So book
Okay.
wise, I'm okay.
All right.
If
Perfect.
if it comes to pass that I die within the first 15 minutes, I'm gonna feel bad because I've made bad decisions. But Kaluro is gonna be.
All right. Well, good for Kaluro. No, no stress there. And fans, if you're worried about Kaluro's life, he's going to be okay. Um, so, James, thanks a whole bunch for meeting with us today. Do you have any questions for me before I wrap it up?
I mean, any like real big questions? No, I think this is going to be. I think that at the end of the day, it's a great way for a lot of, like you said, it's a lot of different fantasy authors getting their characters out there. So if you've got a fan of one fantasy author, they'll see another author and they'll say, "Hey, maybe I should check that guy out." And maybe that guy writes in a way that I'll enjoy. So I think that it's going to be a good time for everyone. It's going to be a great way for people to find a new fix, a new someone that they want to read, which is a good thing for all. You know, reading is a thing that we need to encourage more of.
I agree. And if all of your characters stay alive, there's a chance that we could push this thing forward and continue the adventure and telling more stories. That would be fun.
I love it. That is a
Yeah.
great idea.
All right, so let's hear some shout outs for yourself, for anybody. Where can we find your stuff?
Ooh, my stuff. I'm not gonna. We've had the conversation. I don't do this for like. I'm not an author in the typical sense where I'm looking for a lot of like people to buy my stuff. Most of my books, I happen to have one right here. Boom. That's Sound and Fury. You can find that on Amazon. It's you can find me on Amazon. It's H. James Lopez, and all of the books that currently are up there go to somebody else. The Sound and Fury books, all of the Rider Punk books that are on there, most of the profits of those are donated to large dog shelters in the Washington State area. Most of the other books that I use, Cargo Wars with Boundary Shock, and I think there's a couple other anthologies on there that I can't remember right now. They go to houses that usually they're taking the profits from their anthologies and they're using them in fashions to pay for 501(c)s that are benefiting education or benefiting reading literacy kind of a thing. I'm not trying to grab a lot of profits from this. Maybe there's one or two things on there that is actually a book that'll get me like $3 on the back end, but I'm not worried about that. It's one of those things that I like to write stories that people want to read, and I want people to read, and I want them to do good things with with their money. So the anthologies. I like that the anthologies benefit other people. They don't necessarily have to benefit me. But yes, Amazon is where I would tell you to go. Though they run the world. They know where I am at all times, and they will come find me if I give too much money away.
All right, guys. This is H. James Lopez. Look for his stuff all over the place. And thanks a bunch, James. We are definitely looking forward to this big, fun game.
Sounds like a good time. I can't wait to play.
All right. Have a good afternoon.
You as well.
Thank you.